Today I'm taking a look at a solo-only game, and it is a war game that is Halls of Hegra. This is a review copy that was sent to me, and in this game, you are playing as the Norwegians, and you are going up against the Germans during World War II. There's lots of different things you're going to be doing. There's some worker placement, there's some bag building, there's some area control, and tower defense, lots of different mechanisms in this solo-only game. So first, I'll show you how it plays, and then I'll tell you some of my likes and dislikes with Halls of Hegra. Okay, here we have a game of Halls of Hegra set up and ready to go. As I mentioned in the intro, lots of different things that you are going to be doing in this game, but you are commanding the Norwegian forces in their fight against the Germans during World War II. So there's multiple different rounds and different phases. There's the mobilization phase, there's the first attack, there's the siege 1 and 2, and then the last stand. There's also a round tracker down here that's a little bit difficult to see, but starts with mobilization and then moves to first attack, siege, and then the last stand all the way at the end of that tracker. So at the beginning of your turn, you will draw an event card, and you will do whatever it says on that event card for that round. So you can see here, to start this round, we got to set the weather to cloudy, which it already is, so that's good. We have to injure one defender and also add a German patrol member. So in terms of injuring a defender, we will go down this list. Whichever one is at the top, that is the one we will use. And so already not off to a great start here in this game. So when you injure a defender, you will roll a die, and then you will put them in one of these open beds here based on the die that you rolled. So I rolled a 4, so that defender, that volunteer, will go right there. Now, we will also draw a patrol member, and so we will reach in this bag, and we will just pull one out, and that's a 1. And so it will go on this spot right here, corresponding to that 1 on the board. As the rounds go on, the German patrol members will start in closer spots and then be harder to get around as you navigate those supply runs, which I'll talk about more in a little bit. Now, the next thing you're going to do is be drawing recruits from the recruit bag. So you will place a doubt disc into the recruit bag, and then you will just draw workers or defenders out up to 4. So you could draw that one, and you could stop there if you wanted to. Say you draw these 2 out, maybe you're saying, I'm going to stop. That's good. You get all 3 of those workers or defenders and move them into your ready area. But if you were to draw out a doubt disc in this bag at any point when you are drawing these defenders out, you will have to just choose one of these defenders to put over here, and then the rest will go into the reserve and will probably most likely not be available to you for the rest of the game. So there's a little bit of a push your luck aspect there in terms of how much you want to try to draw workers out of this recruit bag before you stop. So let's say we just stopped right there and we get these 3 defenders and we place them right there on the board. Well, now we get to kind of assign these at different areas on the board. So there's multiple things maybe that we want to do to begin this game. Maybe you want to send somebody out on a supply one. Well, these type of workers work really well for that, so you could place a worker there. Maybe you want to go ahead and fire artillery, so you place a worker right here. Maybe you want to repair something, so you place a couple of workers down here. Maybe you put a worker in your defense spot. Maybe you want to move the morale marker as well. And maybe you want to shovel snow. And then maybe you want to get that defender that's injured out of there, so you could put this one over here. So now you've assigned all of your defenders. You don't have to assign all the ones that are in the ready area, but you can if you want to. Now you just go through the actions. So in this particular phase of the game, the mobilization phase, you can open new supply routes or you can negotiate. And you should probably put, instead of firing artillery, it would probably be smart to open a new supply route. So these are supply routes that are out here on the board. And when you open a new one, you pick these tokens and you put them in various spots. This is going to allow you, when you get back, to take one German patrol member off the board. That's going to allow you to add a miss to the hit bag, and that's going to give you an extra morale or an extra soldier that you will add into your defender stack. So I'm going to go ahead and put my soldiers out right here. And now I've opened up this supply route. Now that is another spot that I can go to gather those supplies on my supply run. So once you use those workers, you just put them in the tired area for that particular round. Now moving on to the next phase, we're not firing any artillery in this particular phase of the game, but I will explain to you how that works here in just a second. And then you might want to send out a new supply run. Now when you send out a supply run, you are looking at the weather, and that's dependent on how far you can move. So maybe I want to go and get these supplies over here. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm almost there. One more space, I would make it there, and then I could carry this back. When you carry supplies back, you lose one movement unless you have this particular type of worker, and then you ignore that penalty. So that would be the supply run action. Now down here on the maintenance action, you can shovel snow. This type of worker also allows you to move 2 on this particular track. If you ever get down here, you get to flip this snow tile over, and you'll get something. This is going to give you 2 new supplies. Some of these are worker spots, like this is an extra gun, and you would place that out there on the board, and that would be an option for you in future rounds. So there's different things there with the snow tiles, but that is an action you can take as well. And when you shovel snow, again, you would just move this worker over here to the tired spot. You also can repair, which allows you to remove 1 damage tile or unjam 1 status tile. At the beginning of the game, your defense positions and your guns are also damaged. So I think what I would do is go ahead and move those off of there, and then probably take this one off. And so now that part of that gun is ready to be used. You can also inspire, which will move the morale marker up to here on the morale track because you're using your officer. And that is good when you get later on in the game and also in the rounds because you are looking at those morale modifiers in terms of which cards you might need to draw at the end of a particular round. So now that round is pretty much over. So you'll now move on to the morale modifiers. You will look and see at the doubt marker if you've got this at this in either of those spots, which we don't. Is it a red day? No. Are you out of supplies? No. Are there any defenders in the waiting area? No. There's no defenders in the morgue, and there's no German soldiers in the red sector. So we will stay right here at our +2 for this particular round. Now you would draw 3 high morale cards, and you would resolve 2. There's different things you can do. You can repair a damage tile, look at the top card of any event deck, or lower the suspicion 2 levels. Well, I think what I would do is repair 1 damage tile, then would maybe take this damage off of this gun, so we've got that as an option now. And then maybe I would look at the top card of any event deck. You know, what's the next card of the mobilization deck that I'm going to be dealing with? Well, I'm going to be dealing with something from the hit bag, so that's good to know for the next particular round. And then you would just put these cards on the bottom of this particular deck. There's high morale and there's low morale. Low morale, obviously, are things that are not good. German patrol members, increasing your suspicion level, getting despair cards, things like that you would be adding into these particular decks. Now that is the end of that particular round. So then you would move on to the next round. You would also, because at the end of round 1, you draw 2 more German patrol members and put them out on the board. So this is the spot 2, so that would go right there. And then this would go on spot 3. Now, if you ever encounter one of those German patrol members, say we're moving over here and we're going towards this spot and we hit this space. Well, there's a couple of different things that you can do in that particular case. You can stop, and so that would reduce the suspicion level by 1. You can also sneak, and you roll a die. And if the die roll is higher than the current suspicion level, you continue your movement and increase the suspicion marker by 1. But if it's lower to or equal, then you return that defender to the reserve and the German patrol token to the patrol bag and reduce the suspicion marker by 2 levels. You can also fight as well if you want. And if you fight, you end the movement, return 1 German patrol token to the patrol bag, and roll a die. If the result's higher than the suspicion level, you end your movement. If it's equal to or lower, the defender is injured and you place the defender in the infirmary. So on this particular roll, if that was a 1 there, then that defender would be gone basically for the rest of the game. But if I was able to roll a 4, I could move past them and move into that spot over there. So that's one thing that you can do with the supply run. So some other spaces that I have not shown you. Firing artillery. If you have 2 workers in that particular sector, you can hit 1 of these artillery or German patrol members, pour revealed target that you have on these particular guns. You can also resolve one option per revealed target. Here at the airfield, you might remove one air tile stack, get 2 miss tokens into the hit bag, gain 2 morale, or move the surrender marker down. If the surrender marker ever gets here, you lose the game. That is not good. You will also check the surrender marker for various things here, and the surrender will go up if you have, say, 3 or more defenders in the morgue, 4 or more defenders in the waiting area, 6 artillery on the map, or when you're in the siege phase, if you have fewer than the required number of healthy defenders left, then you will also lose the game. So lots of different ways to lose the game here in Halls of Hegra. So that's basically the mobilization phase. You will use die to basically reveal or to fire this artillery. So you will, with these tokens that you have over here, you will roll die, and then that will determine how many you hit and also where you hit as well for the military actions in the particular game. Now, when you roll that die, if the result is lower, like that's a 1 there. So if it's lower than the area you're trying to hit, which this is a 5, 5, 4, 3, 6, then you have to jam the gun. You take one of these tokens and place it over the top of there. So now that gun is jammed and you are not able to use it until you repair it, which you can again do down here on that space. So that's how you are able to fire your artillery. Now, at the end of the third round, you have what is called the coup or the coup, and you are going to draw a number of discs from the recruit bag and place them in the reserve, and that's where the fear marker is, and you're going to redraw any doubt discs. So the fear marker is at 3, so you would draw 3 discs from the recruit bag and then place them in the reserve. So these are now not in the bag anymore, and they're in the reserve, and that lowers the amount of workers that you have here in the recruit bag. You'll move your supply marker 1 spot to 3, and then you'll also place 1 defender on each defensive position not covered by a damage tile. So right here you could place this one right there if you wanted to, and that's the defender, and then you will flip this board over. Now, we're in the first attack phase at this point, so you will draw a first attack event card, and you will add 2 despair cards to the high morale deck. These are not good. Obviously, if you're thinking you're going to get high morale and then get despair cards, that's never a good thing. So you will add those into that particular deck, and now you will draw out of the bag and also add soldiers to this area of the board. So you would go through the recruit bag as normal, drawing out your workers, keeping in mind that there's doubt discs in there. Maybe I got a doubt disc, so I'll stop there, and then this one would go back in the bag. Now, if you have tired workers, like say we have these tired workers right here, you could spend a supply and then move however many of those workers on this track over to the ready area. So if we had spent 1 supply, we could move 3 workers over to this ready area, and then they would be ready to assign. Now, you also have to add German soldiers in the attack phases of the game. So first they would go down here into Sector 1, and you start with 5 of them, which is going to be a lot. So you have those 5 defenders right there, and then you will roll a die for each defender, and you will see what they do. So if it's a 2, that one's not going to move this particular time. There's a 5, there's a hit, there's a 5, there's a hit, there's a 1, and then let's say 1 moves as well. So with those defenders, now you will do their actions. So if they hit, you ignore 1 hit per defense level and injure 1 defender per hit. Well, we have no defense level, and so this defender would be injured. Now you would roll that die, place them onto a bed, and then, treat them in the infirmary. Now, also in the infirmary, I guess I forgot to do this one last round, and I do apologize, you would be able to move this up 1 level, or possibly 2 levels, depending on if you have a medic in that position. So if we were to move this up 2 levels, this one would technically be here now, and then also every round you move all patients in the waiting area down 1 level, and all patients in the beds up 1 level. So at the end of this round, we would move this one up 1 level from being injured. Now, the other thing you will do here is when you have those hits, like I said, they will injure defenders. When they move up to the next sector. And when they charge, you injure the leftmost defender in a defensive position and place this meeple back in the reserve. But if that is not possible, you will move one defender from the tired area to the morgue and then place them back in that reserve. And obviously, dead defenders are bad as well because they're going to lower your morale and also possibly increase your surrender level as well. So lots of different ways to lose this game. Then you have the retreat phase at the end of day 6. So the retreat phase happens, and you will move out these artillery units onto the map as well, wherever there is a yellow artillery space. Now those move out. You move the supply marker down once again, and you also move the defense marker down. Maybe you have to draw from the hit bag. The hit bag has various things in it. It could have mist tiles. It could have these air supply chits in there as well, and it would have artillery. So if you draw this out, you have to now add another artillery to the board. And if you draw the miss, obviously nothing happens on that particular turn. So that happens at the end of day 6. Now, you would take these off of here, you would take this board off, and here's the other various sectors. So these would be other soldiers, that would be out here on this particular board in various spots. Your hit range is determined by what type of defender you have in this area. So if you have a soldier, they can hit really far, but if you have a volunteer, they can't hit very far at all. Also, you can decide you're going to have a reckless defense where you hit 2 soldiers and then injure that defender. And you also have a machine gun space as well. And so what you would do is take that machine gun space and take a status tile right here and then put it right there, and you are able to use the machine gun if you would like as well. And then you would flip it over, and then it would be jammed after you use it. There's also grenades in this round, which lower your defense levels. There's hits, there's movements, there's charges as well. So that's the retreat phase. It gets worse as you go on, as you can probably determine. So, you get into the siege phase. These cards get worse, where now we've lost 2 supplies and we lose 2 morale. That's not good. The siege 2 phase right here. Well, now we lose 3 morale. There's other things that might happen. Now we have to put, these supply tiles or these air tiles into the hit bag. We've got to put more artillery out on the board. We've got to put more soldiers out on the board down here. So lots and lots of stuff is happening. So if you get all the way to the end, if you make it all the way to the last stand, well, then you have a chance, if you will, to win the game. So you will draw the top card of this last stand deck over here, and you will look at it, and it will say injure 2 defenders or move the surrender level up 1. Now, after you do all of these things, if you have an equal or higher number of healthy defenders than required, you win. That is very hard to do. So it is possible, but it's going to be very, very difficult. You're going to lose this game more than you win. I hope that's a pretty good overview of Halls of Hegra. Again, lots of different worker placement spots, some bag building, defending various areas of your board as well, dealing with lots of different things throughout the course of the game that you are constantly trying to manage. If you focus too much on one area, that'll hurt you in other areas. And so that is an overview of Halls of Hegra. Now I'll tell you what I liked and disliked about this game. Okay, so you've seen how Halls of Hegra is played, and I'm going to share with you some of my likes and dislikes for this game. One thing that I really do enjoy about Halls of Hegra is the thematic feeling of the game. It really does feel like you are in a battle, and you are commanding these Norwegian soldiers and volunteers and different members of your squadron as you are trying to go up against the Germans. I really like how the game builds. The first couple of days, the mobilization phase, you're not dealing with too much. There's not too many bad things happening at that particular point. There's some German patrol members that are out on the board, but you don't have any German soldiers coming your way yet. You don't have to defend your wall at that point. You're really able to just kind of get set up and get ready to go. And then when that first attack happens, you really feel it. It's really hard and heavy in terms of how fast the soldiers are coming on, how you have to try and and, get them suppressed or defeat them so you don't lose all of your defenders to injury or death. So I really like that progression in the game. It feels very much like how an actual battle would feel, where you would take a couple days to strategize what you want to do, and then the battle starts, and then you're just in the middle of it, in the thick of it throughout the rest of the game. I also really enjoy the number of different worker placement spots in this game. There's tons of different areas that you can go to and different strategies that you can deploy. You can say, okay, I'm really going to focus on repairing my equipment so that I make sure I have all of my guns and defense positions. Or maybe I want to try to upgrade my defenders. Or I want to make sure that I don't have a ton of defenders in the infirmary and I get them healed and back into my stash so that I can use them again at some point in the game. There's lots of different ways you can go about it. There's those snow tiles as well. You can say that's going to be my strategy, and I'm going to, try to get those out on the board and get some other worker placement spots that are better and I might be able to send my workers to. So lots of different ways that you can approach this game. You can say, I really want to take a fighting approach to this. I really want to be hands-on, try to really defeat these German soldiers. Or maybe I want to try to upgrade other things, get supplies, bring those back. Those will help me as well, keep morale up, keep my supplies up. Again, lots of different strategies that you can take throughout the course of this game. I also like the different types of workers. So in addition to the spots, you've got the different styles of workers, and they're all better at different things. It makes sense that you can't put a medic in the spot that, mans the gun, because that's not really what they would do in an actual battle anyway. But if you put them in the infirmary, they're better than another worker that you would place there. Same thing with the soldiers. They're really good at fighting and defending, but they may not be good at some other type things that would be better suited for volunteers or your officer or somebody like that you might put in those certain positions. So that feels very thematic as well in terms of placing the correct workers in the correct spots to get the biggest benefit throughout the course of the game. I also like the flow of the game. I feel like it flows pretty well in terms of the actions that you are doing each round. You don't have to do the actions in the order that they are laid out on the board, but I find that if you do them in that order, whereas you start at 1 and you go all the way to 6, it does work pretty well and gives you, again, a nice thematic feel, and it's just kind of the natural order of progression so that you can remember that you did everything before you move on to the next phase and move on to the next round in Halls of Hegra. I also like the morale track. So that is a really big thing that you have to keep in mind throughout the course of the game. Sometimes you are going to have things happen that are going to lower your morale. But if you can get your morale higher, sometimes you can get a good card or a couple of good cards that might help you get some better things in that particular round. And it's not going to be easy. I mean, this is not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination, but sometimes those can give you a benefit that will help you in that round or in further rounds, depending on what it might give you. So I really like that morale track. That's something that you have to constantly focus on. And I also like the board that changes throughout the course of the game. So that bottom left corner of the board, you're going to be flipping that and taking it off of there at various points in the game. And I like how those spaces change. In the mobilization phase, you're just trying to manage your fear, your doubt, your morale, and then in the first attack phase and the siege phases, you're going to have soldiers there that are German soldiers that are placed there that are constantly advancing on you throughout the course of the game. Another like that I have for this one is, again, I said it's not an easy game, but I don't think it should be an easy game. I mean, this is about a war. This is about a battle between the Germans and the Norwegians, and war is not easy. Winning battles is not easy. I've played this a bunch. I've never won. I always lose on like day 8 or 9. Sometimes I get lucky and make it a little bit past there, but I have never won the game. And I think that feels very thematic. It's going to be hard to win a battle. It's going to be hard to do everything correctly so that you have enough defenders left at the end of the game. And I really like how this game has you lose defenders throughout the course of the game. So you start with a bunch and you feel like, okay, I feel like I'm pretty good. I have enough positions. And then just as the game goes on, you will occasionally lose members of your worker group. They might get injured. They might die. You might have to put them in the tired spot and you're not able to get them back. Also, the way the supplies track moves. And so sometimes You can spend one supply to get 4 workers, but then as the game goes on, you can spend one supply to only get 3, and then one to only get 2, and then eventually one to only get 1. So it really does have that feeling of, oh, I'm losing members of my group. They're either injured, they're dead. You know, we have less soldiers than we did at the beginning, which again is how an actual battle or war would happen. Is that would be the case, is that you would lose guys and ladies as the battle progresses. So I also like the infirmary area. I think that's really smart in terms of how the workers will advance up that infirmary area, and then eventually they can go back into the tired pool, but it takes time. You know, it feels good that, you know, when they get injured, they don't just come right back into the game. They've got to sit there for like 3 or 4 turns sometimes before they are ready to go back. And when this game only has a certain number of rounds, that could be a long time that you are without a worker before you are able to get them back. So the artwork is also really good. Well, the worker discs are really nice. They're very easy to tell apart in terms of which worker is which. There's some nice iconography on the board, letting you know some certain things as well, so you don't have to constantly refer back to the rule book either. Also, one other thing I should mention is that this is a solo only game. So of course, when you're approaching it as a solo player, it's designed with the solo player in mind. So there's no additional set of rules that you have to learn for this game to be able to play it solo. It's designed with that one player focus in terms of you're doing everything. And so it feels really good as a solo game in the way that it's designed and that it only plays one person only. I guess you could play this as a team if you wanted to. You could play it cooperatively. I wouldn't play it with, it's again designed for one person. I could see you playing it with 2 if you had, somebody at the table that you wanted to kind of co-strategize with and make decisions with. But I think it really works well, again, as the way it's designed, a solo only game. And it feels really nice being able to put all your workers out there at various spots on the board, and you're kind of thinking in your head exactly what you want to do with all those various workers and defenders. So those are my likes for the game. So now we'll move on to my dislikes. I do have a few. My first one is going to be with the rule book. I feel like the rule book is a little bit complicated in terms of figuring out the actions that you can do in every round, and also what things are available to you at certain points throughout the game. So the way it's laid out is just a little interesting. I don't think I would have laid it out in the particular way that it is. I think it could have been arranged a little bit better to try and have that flow a little bit better so you can understand the game a little bit more. Also, there is like a player aid on the back of the rule book, but it's still a little confusing too. I would have liked maybe a better player aid or something that just has a really good round structure on it in terms of in the first round, do this. In the second round, do this. Then again, there are reminders on the board of certain things, but it took me a couple of games before I wrapped my head around all of the various actions that were available to me. In fact, I thought certain actions weren't available in certain rounds just due to the way the rule book was laid out. That happened to not be the case. There is some really nice player aids on BGG that you can go and download. Those really helped me out in terms of understanding the flow of the game and the round structure and exactly what I needed to do. But I thought the rulebook could have been a little bit better. Also, another thing that I don't like is the fact that your guns and your defense positions are damaged at the start of the game. Now, I totally understand them getting jammed or those positions, being occupied during the game, but it doesn't feel really accurate in the fact that we're starting this battle and I'm already down equipment, and I also need to open up some more defense positions for my workers and my guys to be placed in. I just didn't really like that aspect of it. I thought that made it really hard to try and overcome that. It felt like in the earlier rounds, I was constantly trying to repair my guns and also my defense positions so that when that attack did start, I would have workers there that would be able to defend and shoot if needed. So I just think that those should be open at the beginning of the game. Shouldn't have damage on them. Again, I understand that once you use a gun, if depending on how you roll the die, you might jam it, and that's totally understandable, but I just didn't like how they were already damaged to begin the game. Also, I didn't love how the workers, the German soldiers, moved in this game. It's all dependent on a dice roll, and there's really no way to mitigate that at all. They're just moving up this track, and then eventually they might progress into the next area, and then do something even worse. And you can use your defenders to, try and attack them or suppress them, but that happens after the phase of which they attack you. So it just feels like there's not a lot of ways to mitigate that in terms of if you just roll a bunch of 6s or 5s, they're going to attack a lot that round. You might lose all of your defenders that you have in those positions. Now you have a bunch in the hospital and in the infirmary that you have to take care of. Another thing that is a little bit of a dislike with this game is it feels like once you figure out the right strategy, and I haven't done it yet, but it feels like you would be able to win this game pretty easily every time, at least from what I can deduce from the rule book and also playing it a bunch. It feels like if you figured out the right course of actions to take in the right rounds and which workers to place where, that you would eventually devise a strategy where you could win this game fairly easily. And then at that point, I feel like you would have solved the puzzle. Now, how long does it take to solve the puzzle? I don't know. I haven't solved it yet. I've played it a bunch and I haven't been able to figure it out to get a win. But it feels like once you figure that out, it may not be as exciting to play over and over again because you've achieved the challenge and you also kind of know what you need to do in what order to possibly win the game at that point. But overall, I enjoyed Halls of Hegra. Not too many dislikes for this game. I do feel like it is very thematic, as I said. I really like that it is a solo-only game. I like the different aspects of the things that you are doing. Like I mentioned in the intro, it's got a little bag building. It's got some worker placement. It's got some area control. So all of those mechanisms mesh very nicely together, but just a few dislikes for this game. And overall, I'm going to rate this one a 7.5. I enjoyed Halls of Hegra. Not one of my favorite games of all time, but I do really think if you enjoy this theme, if you like a war game, if you like some of those mechanisms that I mentioned, if it sounds intriguing to you, you should definitely check this one out. And so a 7.5 for Halls of Hegra. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. I've got lots of other videos on my channel, reviews and lists. I'm going through my top 50 solo games of all time right now, too. A couple more videos in that series to come very soon. Until next time, I'm Jared. You've been checking out Specifically Solo.